When was the last time you took a big, deep breath? When was the last time you sat on your couch or porch and looked outside? What did it feel like? Who was there? Those small or big moments of reflection and tenderness and calm, I think, are deeply precious. In those moments, you may sometimes get a nice message from someone, or it is a text. And in the case of the game we're discussing today, that message comes in a bottle. That message is one pushing you to reflect on who you are and what got you here. In fact, A Lone Oar is a beautiful game that can help you reflect if you take the time to do so. So in this video, we will discuss A Lone Oar, as well as how it uses the metaphor of a message in a bottle to emphasize the importance of reflection on our well-being and how we perceive ourselves and others. So viewers, grab your oars, remember to pack your favorite sandwich and or beverage, and do not lose your safety ring as we set out onto a beautiful lakeside in A Lone Oar. A Lone Oar is a solo RPG written by Robert and illustrated by Multiworth. It is a solo role-playing game and a small story that invites you to reflect on yourself. The game is fitted onto an A4 document with 32 illustrated pages, 6 question pools, and a simple premise that can be played in around 30 to an hour. As stated on the page, this is a small story, a small game, and an invitation to just think and be yourself, by yourself. The game premise is simple, but its simple premise is elevated by the evocative art and story it is trying to tell as you explore your own experiences. This was inspired by, open quote, a memory of an odd connection via a message in a bottle, turned into a small narrative about a boy in a boat, alone in the water, with his thought and a single oar. Evocative shades of blue and white describing open skies and a lake is what you see here. The use of paper on a text colored blue to further emphasize the calming nature of the game and the atmosphere all exudes this sense of pleasure and a sense of reflection. In terms of the gameplay itself, you will need 2 6-sided dice. You will also need a writing implement as well as the game itself. That's really all you'll need. You will use those 2 dice to determine what question pool you pick and the specific question you're going to answer. For instance, I rolled 2 5s, which means I go to the question pool 5, the what section, and then I choose question 5 in blue. What would you take with you if you really were sailing the ocean? You will then proceed to do this. If you roll again and get the same number, you answer the secondary question. If you roll it a third time, you answer the bottom question. The bottom question is usually a more philosophical question or one that is more thought-provoking than the rest. From there, keep playing, making sure to avoid that pool. If you do roll on that pool, you can add a question. Otherwise, keep playing as discussed earlier until you have answered a second bottom pool question. Once you've done that, feel free to finish up the game. As you can see, the game can be played in maybe 30 minutes to an hour or more, depending on your writing time. It doesn't require a lot of heavy lifting. What does require more heavy lifting are the questions themselves that will have you thinking about yourself as well as your life and your experiences. That is the heart of this game and the heart of this message is. And why I think the usage of a message in a bottle is really evocative. I think the choice to focus on the theme of a message in a bottle is done to emphasize the importance and usefulness of reflection. To start, let's establish what a message in a bottle is. And I know some people are going to already know what it is, but I don't want to assume. A message in a bottle, MIB or MIB as we will refer to it often in this video, is a form of communication in which a message is sealed in a container and released into a conveyance medium such as water. The act and message of a MIB can have a multitude of reasons. A MIB can be done to send a distress signal or last wills and memories from someone. For instance, there is an account of someone finding a bottled message from a soldier killed in action in France during the first day of Battle of Bullecourt. Another account is actually from World War I as well, and this is from Thomas Hughes, who sent a beer bottle with a letter to his wife. He died in war, and the wife passed of old age, but the message would eventually reach Hughes' daughter in 1989. Researchers historically have done MIB for science. For example, the US Coast and Geodetic, which was absorbed into the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, used drift bottles to study variables such as speed. Historically, drift bottles were also used in the UK and issued by the Ministry for Agriculture and Fisheries. Researchers at the University of Alberta, Edmonton used bottle data from an effort to engage youth in polar science to study ocean circulation. Most of the recovered bottles were found in the eastern side of the Atlantic, despite the probability of those bottles being found would be more likely to be seen in the western side of the Atlantic. The researchers even state this is due to observer bias, onshore winds, shoreline topography, and model bias. Nevertheless, their research indicates how drift bottles can be used to study circulation changes and ocean currents, as well as concentration of marine pollution. A message in a bottle can also be a reminder of pollution issues and or, say, climate change. The problem of pollution began in the Industrial Revolution because at that time, people were not too keen on, properly throwing out their items. There was a lot of waste that was thrown into the sea. I'll bet at that time, obviously, people didn't know that there was loads of life in the deepest oceanic trenches on Earth. Litter today is also, not coal anymore, so that's a good thing. However, a major factor of water pollution specifically includes about 1923 million tons of plastic waste that leaks into aquatic ecosystems such as lakes, rivers, and seas. Locations, especially in the global south, face particularly acute issues of pollution given the lack of proper management of water bodies and waste disposal systems. One example is Juba County in the Republic of South Sudan. Finally, pollution such as plastic form a bigger concern of, say, microplastics, which can accumulate in aquatic life and thus enter into food chains, which then incorporates into cells and bodies of organisms. Not to scare folks, but microplastics have been detected in things like placentas, infant stool, infant formula, and breast milk amongst pregnancies, as well as bioaccumulating inside people's brains. Now, I don't want to fearmonger, and I need to be very clear. It is not fully scientifically settled on the full toxicity and or long-term effects of microplastics due to research still being relatively new. However, I don't blame people for being concerned. So, a message in a bottle can be an omen for the harms of overconsumption, the concerns about overpollution, the issues of climate change, or how human beings affect their environment. Maybe a message in a bottle is an omen for the butterfly effects and repercussions that we have not only for other people, but for the marginalized, for, say, those who have to experience the most worst effects of climate change. The message in a bottle, then, is an endless stream of potential. It can be a metaphorical or literal interpretation. Message in bottles have even been used in literary analysis or in books or literature, such as Edgar Allan Poe's famous 1833 short story, MS Found in a Bottle. Or MIB can be used as a time capsule, as we've seen, for personal or survival purposes. It can be a vector to discuss overpollution, or it can be even a story about two transcendent lovers lost to war. It can be many decisions. It can be many choices. Your choice is endless because the stories that can be told are beautiful and wondrous. What matters, though, is that you reflect. And the message in a bottle is a moment to reflect on the story that you're experiencing, whether it's someone showing it to you, whether it's something you found by pure chance, or whether it's just something metaphysical or not literal. The message is the important part, and how you choose to think on it is the key point I think A Lone Oar is trying to talk about. On that note, what you choose to reflect on is entirely up to you as you journal. I think the metaphor or literal use of a message in a bottle leaves enough flexibility. All the examples I mentioned above are potential topics you can reflect on through the game, and its brilliantly chosen questions help to reiterate that. I also think the act of placing a message and sending it off for romantic has a lot of benefits. Reflection can be beneficial to all sorts of people. Librarians support the potential professional benefits of reflection while calling into concern a need for more educational opportunities to develop its skills. Reflection in medical literature can also prove helpful. A literature review discussing reflection in medical diagnosis This states that reflective reasoning, aka thinking about why and how you think on a topic, can be potentially helpful to improving accuracy and minimizing the diagnostic errors. And mind you, diagnostic errors are errors that come when a doctor or a physician diagnoses a patient. So these can be really beneficial for a patient's healthcare as well as the treatment plan that a patient gets on. Teachers have been shown to use reflective frameworks to be more conscious of their strengths, weaknesses, what needs to be readjusted in the classroom, developing classroom management, and convictions and assumptions about their teaching, which all come into consideration and question when done in a healthy, reflective environment. While these examples are by no means conclusive, and benefits and potential side effects aren't even being considered in reflection, you can see that having the potential or the time to reflect and or giving this some thought is really helpful in many different environments, both professionally, health-wise, or academically. Of course, I also want people to be aware that reflection can only do so much, because I don't want us to get into that whole end goal of, well, oh, if I can maximize reflection, if I can maximize my self-helping, I'll be the best person possible, right? I don't want to do any of that stuff. That being said, A Lone Oar does provide a space to reflect calmly through the use of a metaphor of a message in a bottle. So I think reflection is super powerful, and as we see from these earlier examples and research, reflection is powerful, and a message in a bottle, I think, executes it beautifully and eloquently. A Lone Oar is a game that you can pick up and play and leave feeling a little bit better after you are done. With how scary the world can feel at times, having slow moments to just take in the small and big beauties in your life, I think can change our lives sometimes for the better. A message in a bottle can be a potential catalyst for reflection. While the body of water, whether it is actual water or something metaphysical or different, does not need to be big, it can still feel endless in terms of what all parties can gain from reflection-based thinking. And when someone gets to answer those questions, those moments of reprieve can be profound. To leave you all off, the game concludes with one final message in a bottle. Some questions are too big to answer. Some are too small to notice. Reflection shows yourself, not what others see in you. Knowing how you feel safe with yourself, maybe realizing there is a shore to go to for just the right person. Spend time with yourself. Listen to the waves, then talk with someone about what you've heard. You. And if that's not a more beautiful message, then I don't know what else to tell you. If you want to go check out the game, feel free to check down below in the description box. I'll have a link to the game as well as all of the articles mentioned in this video. And if you haven't already, feel free to like and subscribe. Really, it helps me greatly, and it really helps push the video out to others in the algorithm, especially if you like solo role-playing games or other indie RPGs. Nevertheless, special shout out to my Patreon supporters, Harrison Parker and Logan, for your continued support. You too can support my Patreon over here, as well as my Ko-fi if you want to do a one-time donation over there. And I'm the average everyday queer, seafaring, reflective nerd, blurry disposition. Hope y'all have an awesome day. Ciao.